So I stumbled upon a TED Talk from Angela Duckworth, and I was immediately inspired. She is a teacher, psychologist, and she wanted to know what makes somebody successful. She tried to predict who will win the spelling bee, who are the top sales, and which cadet will stay in training. And it wasn't good looks, high SAT scores, or high IQ. It was grit. So Duckworth's definition of grit is a perseverance and passion for long-term goals. Grit is all about stamina. It is sticking to your goals days in and days out, even when the future is full with challenges. So a gritty individual can sustain this effort and interest over years despite adversity and failures. So I found two articles that was relevant. One was about American Emerge docs and one was about UK doctor. They both found that doctors who scored higher in the grit scale showed a lower sense of burnout. And one of the articles hypothesized that improving grit would help target and reduce early stages of burnout. And that's how I got my aha moment. Because I personally identify with humanism as it emphasized on the interpersonal relationships and the value of person in their learning process, I came up with this belief statement. I believe that grit can be fostered in an undergrad nursing student to potentially reduce burnout. So unfortunately, the educator did not really agree with my belief statement. He raised two major concerns. One is that many clinical instructors may not be aware of grits, and therefore it's really hard to foster. Second, in his clinical experience, students are focused on developing clinical skills and critical thinking, so building grits may not be a priority. So Angela Duckworth suggested two ways that we can potentially foster grit. One, educators have to encourage and value the students' work of stamina in addition to their intensity. And another way is to build grit through Carol Dweck's idea of growth mindset. DeWitt suggested that when students learn that their brain can grow in the face of challenges, they will put in more effort and more likely to prevail because they believe that failure is not a permanent state. So someone with a growth mindset, they thrive on challenges and sees failure as an opportunity for growth and stretching their existing abilities. Lastly, Seguin's research showed nursing leaders with a higher grit scores were associated with a reduced sense of burnout. And their studies also suggested the possibility of building grit not only by promoting a growth mindset, but also identifying role models who can cultivate grit personally and through the environment. After the educator's interview and examining the current literature, I wonder if the clinical educator needs to recognize and value grit more. Grit can only be fostered when the educator is familiar with the concept. I am hopeful that this will gain traction in the nursing academia because of the correlation between high grit score and the reduced sense of burnout. Also, I liked Park and colleagues' research on how they reinforce the importance of learning environments and how it could impact the fostering of grit. It reminded me of Flott and Linden's study and how clinical settings can create meaningful clinical experiences for student nurses. Another challenge that I've identified is the language that we use. Grit and resilience are often used interchangeably. Resilience is defined as the ability to bounce back in the face of adversity. A study has shown that they are different. Resilient nurses tend to bounce to other units in the face of adversity, but grittier nurses stay and persevere. To foster grit, which can potentially reduce burnout, it starts with us, educators. We have to inspire growth mindsets. I took some excerpt from Duckworth's book on grit. So when a student makes a mistake, we can say, "This is hard. Don't feel bad if you can't do it yet." The yet is so powerful because it recognizes failure is not permanent as part of the process. As educators, we're also leaders. I believe that if we can foster grit through role modeling and promoting growth mindset earlier in undergrad nursing students, we can ultimately reduce burnout as many studies have shown that individuals who are grittier experience less burnout.